Hey everybody, today I want to talk about the Beatles' Rubber Soul album and the Super Deluxe edition that is probably going to come out at the end of this year, 2023. I don't have any inside information. The Beatles don't support me in any way. It'd be great if they did, but they don't. I have no connection to the Beatles or Apple Records or anything like that. I'm just going off of just instinct, I guess is what I would say, and things I've read on forums and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that this year, 2023, we will get the Rubber Soul Super Deluxe editions, the vinyl box set, and a CD box set as well. And, of course, the remix done by Giles Martin. Because it seems like with the release of the last Super Deluxe editions, Revolver was the last one last year, and it seems like they're working backwards now. And it just seems like Rubber Soul is the next one that would be on deck. So in this video, I want to talk about what I think we can expect in the Rubber Soul Super Deluxe edition. So first off, like I said, it'll definitely include a new stereo remix done by Giles Martin. And, you know, personally, I've liked some of the remixes he's done. Some of the remixes I haven't really liked all that much. So he's kind of hit or miss for me. But I think with Rubber Soul, hopefully he'll take the best of what he's done on the previous remixes, like the Let It Be. Let It Be I thought was a nice remix that he did. I liked what he did on the White Album, and I even liked most of Sgt. Pepper, what he did as well. So hopefully he takes the best of that stuff and puts it into Rubber Soul. So you can definitely count on that. And of course, what I like the most when it comes to these Super Deluxe editions, I love the outtakes, the session outtakes and stuff like that. So I put together a list of known recordings that would be great to have in the box set that I think will probably be in the box set. And I made a list. When I make a list, you know I'm getting serious. First off, there is a genuine actual outtake from the Rubber Soul sessions, and that is an instrumental song, one of the few instrumentals the Beatles recorded. It's a song called 12 Bar Original. So this is a song that's credited to all four Beatles. I think it's actually listed as Harrison, Lennon, McCartney, Starkey, in alphabetical order, I believe. And they recorded it during the Rubber Soul sessions, and they originally recorded it, I think, because they thought they weren't going to have enough songs to fill out a 14-song album. And they were getting worried that they were kind of running out of material, and they didn't want to do any cover songs, because at this point in their career, I think they just wanted to just do all original music, which makes sense. So they recorded this very Booker T and the MGs type song, 12 bar original, and that's just what it is. It's a 12 bar blues, and it's just kind of an okay song, but it's very interesting in the sense that it's the Beatles and the time period that they recorded it in 1965, which is arguably 65, 66 are kind of their artistic peak, although pretty much their whole career was an artistic peak. But it's an interesting song, and it's an interesting song to listen to within the context of the Rubber Soul sessions. Thankfully, though, they ended up coming up with I think at least two more original songs, or maybe they even decided to recycle one of the Help songs that was left over, a song called Wait, that they eventually put on the album. They added some more overdubs and put it on. So 12 Bar Original didn't make the final cut of Rubber Soul, but an edited version of 12 Bar Original was made available on the Beatles Anthology 2. And like I said, this is an edited version of 12 Bar Original, but hopefully with this new Super Deluxe edition, we will get the complete take of 12 Bar Original. Now, the complete take does exist in the bootleg world, so I've heard it a couple of times, but it'd be great to have it in the box set in greatly improved audio quality, and yeah, I would look forward to hearing it there within the box set, because 12 Bar Original is made for a box set. It didn't have a rightful place on any of the Beatles studio albums, but it definitely has a rightful place in a box set type situation. So I would look forward to that. The other song that I think will definitely be included in the box set is the song In My Life. In My Life famously has that amazing piano solo. It sounds like a harpsichord, but it's really a piano that's been sped up, played by George Martin. And it's just like definitely one of the highlights of the album. And it's just such an iconic solo. But before George Martin recorded that piano sped up solo, he recorded just an organ part, an organ solo in that same section. And that still exists. That also exists in bootleg form, but in pretty bad quality. So it'd be nice to have just like an early take of In My Life with the original organ solo in it, because it would make it sound quite different. It has a quite different feel to it. So that's something that we could probably look forward to in the box set. Another huge highlight and a rarity in the Beatles' recording career. There is the song Think for Yourself, which is a George Harrison song. George Martin, during one of the vocal overdub sessions for Think for Yourself, he decided to have a tape recording going of the whole session from start to finish to try to capture anything that might be kind of funny or amusing that he could then use in one of the Beatles' Christmas records for 1965. He didn't end up using anything from that session, but I believe they did use like a little excerpt of that in the film Yellow Submarine. But that whole session exists in really good quality of the Beatles working on the overdubs for this George Harrison song, and it is a fascinating thing to listen to. And it also exists in the bootleg world, so I've heard it. I have a digital file of it, and it's very fascinating. And I think it'd be great to include it in the box set because it's from the sessions. It is the only time in the Beatles' career, other than like the Get Back, Let It Be sessions, of course, which were also recorded, but it's the only time in their early/mid period where you can hear them from start to finish working on a part for a song. Very fascinating, and it's very funny as well. They're super funny within it, and I hope they release that in the box set. Now they could even release that as its own standalone disc, like they've been doing recently with like Revolver and Let It Be. They included like an EP, they called it, which I think was kind of a waste of space, honestly, especially with CDs. But in this case, the Think for Yourself session would make an amazing additional disc. I doubt they'll do that, but hopefully they will include at least some of the Think for Yourself sessions in the Super Deluxe box set. By the way, there's a really great book, and I'll show it right here. It's called A Day in the Life, and the author was given access to the Beatles session tapes. He was given access, and Mark Lewison was also given access to these tapes. Mark Lewison, of course, has written some amazing Beatle books like the Beatles Sessions and Tune In. But this other author, and I forget his name, I think it's Mark Hashberg or something like that. I'm probably getting the name wrong. It's Mark something. He wrote this book called A Day in the Life, and in that book he devotes an entire chapter to the Think for Yourself session where he describes what's going on, and it's fun to read that while listening to the outtake of Think for Yourself. So that's just a little aside if you want to check that out. Next up, there are some very interesting demos floating around of some of the Rubber Soul songs. The most interesting to me is there's an early demo of What Goes On, and it's actually, I think the demo is from 1963, because John had written that song very early on. In fact, the Beatles almost recorded a version of What Goes On during their, I think it was, I could be wrong here, but like the Please Please Me sessions, I believe, or maybe it was for one of their singles, but they were going to, actually I think it was for the From Me to You single, because they recorded One After 909 in that same session, and they were also going to maybe work on What Goes On, but they didn't end up doing it. But John did make a demo of What Goes On, and there's been a little excerpt of it from an acetate. An acetate, by the way, is back in the 60s and the 70s, when a band wanted to make just a quick demo or hear a quick reference of what they just worked on, the engineer could cut them an acetate, which is like a vinyl record, but it was called an acetate, made of different kind of material, I think. And it was just meant to listen to a couple of times, and then it would eventually wear out. But these acetates have survived over the years, and there's a lot of really interesting Beatle alternate mixes and demos and stuff that exists on these acetates. And What Goes On is indeed one of these acetates that still exists, and I think it was recently sold at an auction. But for that auction, they released I think it's 15 seconds or something from the actual demo, and it's fascinating to hear. And it would be amazing if they included that whole demo, kind of like they did with the Yellow Submarine working tape that they released on Revolver, to include that in this new Rubber Soul box set. So I wouldn't hold our breaths for that, but it is something that they could include, which would be very, very interesting. The other thing is there is a demo of We Can Work It Out with it's just Paul on acoustic guitar playing it, and I think it's the demo that he recorded and then gave to John, so John could then listen to that and then add his middle bit, which John then wrote the middle bit, the Life is Very Short part. And again, this exists in the bootleg world as well. I think it came from the Lost Lennon tapes, and actually the version that we hear, it's Paul is singing it like the first verse, and then it cuts off because apparently John used that tape for something else. So hopefully that full demo version, the Paul's demo version, We Can Work It Out, still exists, and that would also be cool to include in the box set. And then last but not least, for the demos that are known to exist, there is an early version of Michelle that Paul, I think, recorded by himself way back in the day, I think in like the early 60s, when they used to borrow a tape recorder from one of his neighbors or something like that. They would borrow a tape recorder, and they recorded a bunch of stuff at the Cavern. They did recorded a rehearsal there. They recorded stuff at Paul's house. And amongst all these recordings, there is an early instrumental version of Michelle with just Paul playing guitar. So that would be cool to include as well. I doubt they'll include that, but it is something to think about. Next up, I mentioned the song Wait earlier. So the song Wait, which of course is on the Rubber Soul album, was originally recorded for the Help album during the Help sessions, but they got as far as recording a full backing track and then two of the lead vocals from John and Paul, but then they kind of just put it on the shelf and kind of forgot about it until the Rubber Soul sessions where they were in need of material. So they took it off the shelf and added a bunch of overdubs to it, and then that is the version that we know on Rubber Soul. But it'd be very cool if on the box set they presented the original version of Wait before it was given all the overdubs that eventually happened for Rubber Soul. So that's something they could include in the box set as well. Next up, there are a bunch of live recordings of Rubber Soul songs that they could also include in the box set. There's a great version of Nowhere Man that they recorded in Germany, and there's actually a video of this. The video is featured in the Beatles anthology. It's also available on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's the Beatles doing Nowhere Man, and they sound really good on it, in my opinion. So that's something they could include in the box set as well. They also, during their 1960, I guess it was 66 tours, they played the George song "If I Needed Someone." So that could also be a song that they include in the box set. Also, like We Can Work It Out, which the song "Day Tripper" was a double A-side single from the Rubber Soul sessions. "Day Tripper" was also performed live by the Beatles in 1966 as well. So that's another song that they could include a live version in the box set. There's a bunch of live versions of that are floating around, I know for sure. So I kind of doubt they'll do that, just because there were also songs that they could have included in the Revolver box set, like live versions of Paperback Writer that they didn't include. So I doubt they'll include any live versions in the Rubber Soul box, but you never know. So, and the other thing with the sessions and the outtakes is we don't know what else is in the vault, because I'm sure there are some amazing, amazing outtakes that hopefully will show up in the box set that will blow all of this away. Because like the previous box sets, there's always a couple of really big surprises that are just amazing for Beatle fans. Stuff that we didn't know existed, like the White Album, the version of Good Night with all four of the Beatles singing together with Ringo. That's an amazing version. With this last Revolver box set, of course, I talked about it previously, but the Yellow Submarine songwriting tape, they called it, that was an amazing, amazing surprise. So there's always cool little things like that they tend to include, and I hope that exists also for Rubber Soul. Okay, so that covers roughly the sessions and outtakes that I know exist. and hopefully that they'll include in this box set. Of course, there are other outtakes as well, like a bunch of stuff from Anthology 2 that's already been released, like early takes of Norwegian Wood, I'm Looking Through You, and I think that might be it from as far as the Rubber Soul time period. But there are other outtakes as well that exist. I just haven't mentioned those. I just mentioned ones that I think would be cool to include in the box set. Also in the box set, hopefully this is what they'll do, and I believe they will because they did it with Revolver. Hopefully they include a mono pressing of the album Rubber Soul in the box set as well, and done exactly how they did the Revolver version, because the Revolver version is excellent, and I hope they do the exact same treatment and everything for Rubber Soul and include that in the box, because that is what the fans want. They want to hear. They love to hear the remix, sure, new stereo mix. They love the outtakes, but they also want to hear the original version that the Beatles themselves approved of, and including in the box is, I think, an essential thing to do. So hopefully we also get a mono pressing of Rubber Soul as well. And then the other thing that I always love about these box sets is the book. The Beatles always, not the Beatles, but Apple Records, the team, whoever puts these box sets together, they always really make the book super, super nice. Has great information, lots of great photos of the original session tape boxes, photos of the actual sessions themselves. So I'm looking forward to the book as well. So that's what I think will be in the Rubber Soul box set. I would love to know in the comments below if you have some ideas what you think might show up in the box set, and if maybe you don't even think Rubber Soul is going to be released this year and that they'll do a different album. But I really think Rubber Soul is going to be the one that they end up releasing this year. So I know I'm looking forward to it. And by the way, I have no idea when they will release it. I think they tend to announce, I believe it's always, they tend to announce it like in August. It seems like it's August, maybe September time period when they make the announcement for what box set they're going to release. And then usually it gets a release in late October, early November. That seems to be the time period that it gets released. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you're all doing well. So take care and bye for now.